Okay, let's get started again. Like I was saying, if you get up and go around, try not to go in front of the camera. We have a lot of stuff to talk about today. Okay, so because we're trying to make up a little bit from the last week that we weren't able to talk to you about. So just bear with us, okay? After our speaker is finished speaking, we're going to serve lunch to you guys, okay? And then we have one more thing after the lunch, or during the lunch, one of the two. So anyway, I want to introduce the class coordinators of the Master Gardener Training class. My name's Paul Carter, I'm the lead coordinator. And then we have April Ripple, who is one of the coordinators.
This is April, y'all saw her at the front.
There's April.
Okay. She's our Vanna wife.
And then we have Tim Steele. He's one you got to watch out for, though.
Which one of you two
Okay. All right. I think everybody has our phone numbers.
Tim Steele's the old guy because he's still got a Hotmail account.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Hotmail, my Hotmail account was set up by my lovely wife. I had nothing to do with it.
Okay, come on. You have phone numbers on here if you need a phone number. We're here to help you any way we possibly can. So don't be afraid to call. If we don't answer, be sure you leave a message, okay? And we'll return your call, okay? So let's proceed. I want to introduce one of our major volunteers in our organization. She's been with Master Gardeners since 2014. Okay, so she's been around a while, 10 years. She was the president of the organization in 2018. Okay. Then she became the education director in 2020, and that lasted till 2021 until I came along. She decided to step down from the Master Gardener Training class, and I took her place. And that was turned over to me in 2023. So right now, she's our new president again. So watch what you say to her now. But she's here to help you too any way she possibly can. She's also heavily involved in the Christian Cupboard in downtown Seguin, which takes care of needy people. So this is, what's your name? This is Kay McLevin. So let's welcome Kay.
I'm Kay McKelvin. Don't worry about pronouncing, spelling, or worrying with the last name at all. I answer to anything that sounds vaguely familiar. Kay works great. I'm not the only Kay in the organization, but I'm the one whose name gets yelled the most. I want to welcome you to Class 40 of the Guadalupe County Master Gardeners. As Paul told you, I've been here since the Dark Ages, which I thought he was getting ready to actually
I wouldn't do that to
say.
you.
It is a great organization with a lot of opportunities to learn for those of us who like to dig in the dirt, which is me. I found out after I moved to Texas in 2014 that growing things here was different. Yeah. Growing things any place that you move to is different. And the first thing I did, the very first thing I did was enroll in the Master Gardener program. And I was the first enrollee in that class 26. So that tells you how many classes we had. The next year I became the class coordinator. Quite sure how that happened, except I have sucker written right across the So everything that Paul and Tim and April know, they learn from me if they do it well. If they don't do it well, I don't know where that came from. If you have any questions at all, do not hesitate to ask any of them or me. This is a fun class. It's a great learning experience. There are some wonderful volunteer opportunities that you'll be hearing about as the class goes on. I hope you'll take advantage of them. Now, somebody mentioned to me when they came in the door, when I had my name tag on upside down, but that was so that I knew who I was this morning. I have a fancy name tag, and you guys don't. You don't get this name tag.
How long did you tell her she could be speaking?
When you get certified, then you get the name tag. But we do ask that if you work in a volunteer location, particularly if the public is around. Now, if it's just digging in a dirt in the garden someplace, not so much. But if the public is going to be around, we do ask that you wear your name tag. And if possible, if it's a public venue, your t-shirt, the little PR. So, I'm going to sit down and shut up. Paul told me I only had 5 minutes.
It was 3.
Close.
3.
I'm shy and retiring, and I never talk about anything unless you give me an opportunity. So now I do want to mention something I'm sure that they will get around to mention, and this is really, really important. Okay? The bathrooms. The ladies' room is right straight across the foyer, just before you go into the office for Agri-Life, the glass door there.
On the left-hand side.
On the left. The men's is right outside this door to the left. So,
And interject, there's ladies' restroom upstairs also. You can use the elevator and/or, the stairway there.
yeah. Ask them
If
to
you
show you
need
where our office is when we do have an office here in the building on the second floor. So, I'm going to sit down. So,
All right. Thank you. Be sure everybody mute your telephones. Okay? If you haven't already, including you, Tim. Everybody mute your phones. Okay? Now we're going to get started now with our speaker. This was a speaker that was supposed to be here last week, but he wasn't able to make it just like everybody else.
Paul, did you want to talk about Travis and who he is?
Travis, when he comes in next time, when he's available, then we'll talk.
Okay, he's not here, but he is our extension agent.
Yeah, he's in charge of this whole organization here
Except
in
for
this
his
building.
vacation.
He-
He's doing right now.
All right, our speaker that we have coming up, I want to tell you right off the bat, over the past few classes, we do evaluations for each speaker. He is the highest evaluated speaker in our organization. The highest out of all of our speakers. Now, our other speakers are good, but he's been evaluated as the highest, okay? So he's had his own landscape business at one time. He's an extension agent for Texas A&M, he was. And he took care of cattle ranchers, he took care of some farmers, helping them out in their planting and all this kind of stuff. And of course, he's helped here in Guadalupe County. But he's been an extension agent for 32 years, and he's retired now. But he's got a multitude of information for you guys, and he'll tell you straight on how things are and should be. So be prepared for that.
A minute, please.
Yes.
We weren't able to have a class last week because of the weather, as we all know. So our presenter, he's a very dynamic individual, but he's going to do lawn care starting off with today. And possibly a little bit of the design, but he'll follow that up with his next class that we have here in the near future.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's scheduled to do 2 or 3 classes, so he'll be back. So anyway, here we go, Mr. Dennis Hale.
Ruthie, you shut up and sit there and don't tell me anything about me. I've known Ruthie longer than we want to know. Anyway, pleasure to be here. Y'all are going to have me 3 times during this session or during these classes, so hopefully we all get along. If we don't, y'all are going to have me 3 times. So we're going to cover 3 subject matters, and we've kind of turned it around a little bit today. We're going to cover lawn management. We're going to cover landscape design. In that landscape design, we're also going to cover what we call top performers. And those are plants that maybe aren't the standard that landscape companies put in when they do landscapes. We're going to show you pictures, show how to manage them. Are they bee attractors? Are they hummingbird attractors? Butterfly attractors? Those types of things. And then we're going to, on the third session, we're going to evaluate some landscape plans that y'all will be drawing up during the year. So we're going to mix and match some of this. We'll get all of those covered, but we're having to work around some things because last week was supposed to be the first class. And so anyway, we'll get it all done. I am a retired county. Oh, I haven't said anything. We already have a question. Okay, go ahead. Yes.
I have a question. As a speaker now, will it be in one of our books?
Yes, it will, but let me tell you how we're going to do this. Well, I'm going to tell you how I would do it. I don't know how Guadalupe County will do it. We do about 50 of these over the state every year. And what I encourage, my presentations are on their desktop. Y'all are more than willing to have the presentations sent to you, or they can put them on the website. That'll be up to Guadalupe County, but yes, these presentations will be made available to you, so you take whatever notes you want to, but the actual presentations will be made available to you either straight email or they can put them on the website where you can download them. Because a lot of these will have pictures. Even if they made copies, they're black and white. Well, if you see a plant that's yellow and orange and it's on black and white, you're not going to recognize that one at the nursery. So yes, they will be made available that way. All right, I am a retired county agent, so let's cut through all the BS. I know why y'all are here. Y'all don't have all this great sense of community service, and I want to get back to my fellow man. Y'all are here to learn stuff for yourself. That's what you're here for. You want to learn some stuff about horticulture. What phase of horticulture? Don't know. But you're here to learn. Now, the way Extension does is we're happy to teach you. The hook is you have to give back to become a certified master gardener. And I promise you right now, you're here to learn, but the most fun you'll have is giving back. And you go, well, I don't know anything. How can I give back? You already know more than most of the people that are on Home Depot on Saturday mornings. Trust me. So I do encourage you to get involved and then give back, because that's going to be the most important thing. Because there is so much misinformation out there on the internet. I mean, you and I could come up with something this afternoon, post it on the internet, and somebody go, wow, that's the smartest thing I've ever heard. And it has no background. I do recommend that if y'all do look on the internet, if it doesn't have .edu after it, and having to do with horticulture, I just don't even pay attention to it, because it's either sponsored by a company that's trying to sell you a product, or you and I came up with something while we were drinking beer one night, posted on the internet, and hey, it's the new best thing. It sounds good. So it doesn't have EDU. What EDU means is education, and it means that some research had to be done, non-biased research. So just be careful what you read. Also, the other thing I want to say is, you and I may not agree how to get to the same endpoint, but if we still get to the same endpoint, you don't have to get there the same way. So there's a number of different ways, whether you go organics and things, whatever you do. There's a lot of ways to get to the same endpoint. So part of being a master gardener is learning all of that, and then when you talk to the clientele, you give that information based on their pathway. Now, as a county agent, the 4 major questions I got involving horticulture were vegetable gardens, lawns, trees, and landscapes. So, I don't care if you don't want a lawn. I'm not out here promoting lawns. I'm saying as a master gardener, you're going to be asked questions about lawns. That's just all there is to it. So whether you have one or don't want one or want one, you better know something about it. Because if I come up to you and ask you a lawn question at some event, maybe you're at the big red building out there, the education center, and you're a rose person, say, but I ask you a lawn question, you go, you know what, I really don't know much about lawns, I don't care for lawns, so I don't know the answer to your question. She may be the best rose expert in Texas, but I'll never come back and ask her another question, because she didn't handle my question. Even if she didn't know the answer, she didn't even try to get me the information to find out. So as a master gardener, you may not be interested in some of these topics, but you're going to need to know something about them to help clientele, because that's really the ultimate thing. After y'all get through the selfish part of it, just learning everything for yourself. All right. Now, the final thing is, I hope I don't upset anybody when I say something that you may not agree with. I hope I don't. But I don't work for the government anymore. I am retired, so if I do upset y'all, I really don't care. I really don't. I can go to bed at night, sleep well, no problem. So hopefully we don't. On questions, being that we've got a large group today, if you have a question based on the subject matter, throw your hand up. Like that. That was based on the subject matter. If you have a question on one of your situation, just hang on till the break. That way we don't get into that and we tie up the class just on your specific situation. So we'll catch y'all during the breaks or afterwards, that type of thing, and answer all your questions. Not a problem. All right, let's get started. Okay, I was born in Bernie, raised. My dad was a Texas Ranger down in Corpus Christi, so I was raised in Corpus Christi. Went to school down at A&I, played football there, got my 2 degrees there, and then got a doctorate from K-State. None of my degrees are in horticulture. I've got a bachelor's in animal science, a master's in ag economics, and a doctorate in beef cattle genetics. Do you see any of those on those slides? As a county agent, when I was a county agent, we didn't have master gardeners. You had to know it all. When they called, you had to know everything. And that's what we're teaching y'all. Y'all are going to know everything. So, horticulture really is experience. It really is. 99% of it is experience. Unless you're doing plant breeding or some weird things, what y'all are going to be doing is mainly experience. The better you get at it is the more you do it, and the more mistakes you make. But when I was growing up in Corpus, if you had 2 acres, you had 2 acres of St. Augustine grass. I mean, everybody grew a big old lawn. Water was plentiful. Water was cheap. They almost gave it away, so everybody had a big lawn. Those days are over, folks. Those big, expansive landscapes, no matter what they are, don't just think lawns, where we use a lot of water, those days are over. We have plenty of water in our area. We really do. We have too many people. Let's just be honest. We have too many people. When I was born in Bernie, Texas, I say I was born in Bernie. I was born in San Antonio. There wasn't a doctor's office in Bernie when I was born. When we live in right out of Green, Texas, just right out of Green, and we would go to the hall when we were kids, and there might be 20 people in Green Hall. If you and I put a band together during lunch and played Green Hall tonight, they'd be standing out waiting to get in, just to get into Green Hall. So we have so many more people in the area than we used to have, so our water resources are definitely being challenged. The days of building another canyon lake, and those days are over. That's not going to happen. So we're going to have to be more water conserving on all of our landscape. So when we talk about lawns in the landscape, the days of when you walk up to a landscape and see this expansive lawn and then landscape plants intermingled, those days are over. You're going to see more where a green space is intermingled into the landscape. Green spaces are good. They provide a lot of oxygen, a lot of cooling to your landscape. You stick a thermometer in a lawn during the summer, it'll go about 95. You stick it next to it in some of the landscape, it can get up to 140 degrees. So it does provide a cooling effect. But the days of that 2-acre St. Augustine lawn, those are over. I do want to bring this one up. For instance, we're going to talk about horticulture. Don't think about lawns. We're going to talk about plants. Plants are plants. And we're going to talk about growing them correctly, whether it's a lawn or a landscape plant or an herb or a peach tree or whatever it is. Grasses hold soil. That's what grasses do. Everybody goes, well, I want to go back to native and get rid of all my grass. If you ever look at pictures of Guadalupe County, there was a grass prairie years and years ago. The only brush or trees were in the river bottoms and creek bottoms. It was just a solid grass prairie. So if you say, well, I want to get rid of all the grass and go native, you kind of contradicted yourself. So grass of any type holds soil, reduces erosion. This is a project we did out at Canyon Lake. They called and said, hey, we've got all these walking paths, but no one stays on them. And they walked on the grass, and they killed all the native grass. And then what happens when there's no native grass or grass, and you get a big rain? All of that soil ends up in Canyon Lake. Well, there's no Canyon Lake right now, but what was Canyon Lake? All the soil ends up down in there. That's not good. So they said, hey, Dennis, would you help just advise us on this project? And we've got a lot of natural materials called rock. If you live over where we do, rock is plentiful. Soil is not plentiful, rock is very plentiful. We need to build some step downs to the lake, and we need some grass to hold the soil. That grass in there is Palisade zoysia, which we'll go over in a little while, but it's Palisade zoysia. It's a very drought tolerant introduced grass because the native grasses are good, but they couldn't handle the traffic. This way, if people or dogs or whatever cut across it, it can handle the traffic. Before the project was put in, if you put a bucket down in Canyon Lake after a rain, the water would just look like chocolate milk. I mean, it just, all that soil was washing in. If you did it after this actually was taken the day after a 5-inch rain. But if you did it right after there, the water coming into the lake, coming off of that grass, was almost clear, which means it's holding that soil. So think about lawns or grass of any type. They're made to hold soil. And that's very important. That's just horticulture. That's not anything to do with lawns. Here's a few more pictures. You can see where the green space is intermingled in amongst the landscape, not the overwhelming factor. And this one I want to show, this one right here, we tell about it every year. We live out in River Chase subdivision. This is in our subdivision. This landscape was put in. This is a dry creek bed that runs over. They have a bridge to their house, and you can see these cut-throughs where water actually moves through. The water flows from here down like that. Well, we were walking, Ruthie knows my wife Jenny. Jenny and I walk a lot in the evenings, and we saw these neighbors out with a landscape architect, and I am a certified landscape architect, and folks, that doesn't mean crap. Everybody gets a certified landscape architect. You go through some courses at A&M, you do some intern work, and you're a certifiable landscape architect. If you go to Austin, everybody's a certified landscape architect. And I can say that my youngest son lives in Austin. I love the town, but it's like I don't have anything else to do. I'm going to become a certified landscape architect and start designing stuff. But anyway, I saw him standing out there. I didn't know him. And I heard him talking about putting mulch on both sides of the dry creek bed. And my wife, Jenny, said, Dennis, don't say anything. Well, I couldn't help it. So I walked up and I said, hey, I heard that you're going to put mulch on both sides here. You know, you do realize that water is running down that way, and these people didn't know me, and they were from Ohio. Anybody from Ohio in here? Ohio. And they were not the friendliest people, which I don't blame them, but you are, I can tell. Anyway, and the landscape architect looked at me like, hey, who the hell are you? And I just said, well, you know, that water runs through there. You might want to think about putting mulch on both sides. And he said, look, I'm a certified landscape architect. And he goes, I know what I'm doing. I really don't appreciate you letting me in. Okay, tail between the legs, walk off. My wife Jenny said, I told you. Okay, so they put the landscape in. They put this mulch here on both sides. This is an after photo of after. They got a big rain, and in the hill country, a big rain is about 2.5 inches. I mean, the water runs really bad. The mulch that was on this side completely covered the white dry creek bed. It actually clogged up the brick, and all the water backed up. So my wife and I were walking again. And I thank God he was there with us. And she said, go ahead, just go ahead. So I walked up and I said, I told you so. And he didn't like that at all. And he goes, well, I said, look, man, the water's flowing this way. It was only natural with a slope that mulch was going to end up in that dry creek bed. And he goes, well, you're so smart. What would you do? I said, well, you know, I put some type of turf there to hold that soil. And the people said, God, did he rip them off? The people said, we just spent $180,000 on this landscape. I didn't. I wasn't, man, they ripped you off. But anyway, we don't really have any money to do that. So I'll tell you what, and this is where my wife Jenny's like, oh, shut up, Dennis. I said, I'll do it for free. I said, you're going to need 1.5 pounds of grass to maybe 2 pounds, and we'll tell you how much that is. Anyway, that's going to cost me wholesale about $300. I said, my wife and I'll lay it. She said, and we'll have it done. And they said, well, okay, no problem. And the guy's like, you know, yeah, okay. Well, so he left. So we got in there. There was no problem in getting the soil prepared because there was nothing there. We went in and added a little peat moss and some compost, tilled it in, laid some Palisade zoysia in this case, and that's my favorite grass. I just spit this. This was taken 30 minutes after a 5-inch rain. So what I'm saying is that's that grass held that material. So sometimes you need to think about lawns or grass as holding soil that could erode. So that's what I want y'all to think about. Don't think about it as a lawn. Think about it as something that's holding that soil from eroding. $180,000.
That's the rock work.
Huh?
That was the rock.
No, he didn't do any of the hard, no, he didn't do any of the masonry. That's just the landscape. No, yeah, the rock work, that would add up. That was done when the house was built, yeah. No. Let me tell you how horticulture works, just so y'all are aware of how landscape companies, we have one, and don't really do much anymore but you add up everything. In other words, if I do a job, or not me, but if the landscape company does a job, they come in, they add everything up. Labor, everything. And then they multiply it by 5. And that's how they come up. That's the going rate for landscape. So it's a rather large markup. So, no matter what we do in horticulture, soil is the lifeblood. It's the heart of everything. If you have a healthy, deep soil, which a lot of Guadalupe County luckily does, you have a chance to be lucky in horticulture. If you have shallow soils or no soils or poor soils, I don't care how good you are, it's tough to be successful. Guadalupe County has a lot of wonderful soils, but yes, y'all have a lot of weird ones too. Y'all have some heavy clays in areas where it rains and water will stand for 2 or 3 weeks. You'll have areas, there are some areas in this county that have deep sands that don't hold any water. So, but most of Guadalupe County, most of the county has at least adequate to above adequate soil, which is a good starting point. Oh, you know what I was supposed to do? I forgot. We'll do it at our first. We're supposed to take a soil sample, aren't we? Yeah, we'll do that. Made me think. Well, I'm going to do that right now. It's the soil. Y'all are all going to take a soil sample that y'all are going to send off to A&M and get it back, and we're going to actually interpret those soil results at a later class. Because when you get this form back, you're not going to know what to do with it. It's not going to say put out this much of this, this, and this. It's going to tell you need these amount of nutrients per 1,000 square foot or 100 foot a row or whatever you send in. And you're not going to know what to do with that. Yes?
Not to interrupt you, but in your green folder, you have a soil sample kit.
Right.
You're not going to need to take it outside.
You don't need to take this outside, just yourself. All right. You do not have to use these bags if you don't want to. If you take other soil samples, you can use, most people just use a quart Ziploc, but you do have to put something on it. Okay, here's your form. Y'all get it out. Because I know you'll think, I don't need a stupid form. It's name and address, not hard, and you'll fill something out wrong, I promise you. Now, you can go online and you can get these forms. Let me tell you what the website is. If you want to download any of these forms, it's soil testing, all one word, soiltesting.tamu.edu. And it should be somewhere on here. At the bottom. Yes. Yeah, right there under when the prices are good through. It says soiltesting.tamu.edu.
Right where it says,
Right here. Right about 3/4 way down on the right-hand side of the page. And y'all do need to also look at, it says prices are valid through the end of this year. They never go down on prices, they only go up. So you will want to look at that. They did not really go up this year, so that's good. But you always want to make sure you send in the newest one. Okay, some of this is...
Yeah, they didn't go up 2 years ago, but what they did, well, they did go up, but they had added in all the micronutrients.
Yes.
For free.
Some of this is going to be really, really simple. If you can't fill out your name, address, and zip code and state, you're too stupid to be a master gardener. You need to put your books up and go home. I mean, if you can't fill out that part, we're in real trouble. The one thing I do want y'all to really pay attention is on the right side, 2 things. The county where it was collected. That's very important. For instance, I live in Comal County, but we have a family ranch. We have 400-something acres in Caldwell County, which is Lockhart. So if I'm taking a soil sample there, I wouldn't put Comal County, I'd put Caldwell County. So you may decide to take a soil sample on your weekend place somewhere. Be sure to put what county it was. Also, below that, very important email address. Put it where they can read it. They will mail you the results back, but they will also email you the results back. In the future, the email is the way to go because they charge you extra to mail you hard copies. So, and it's quicker to get an email copy, obviously, than a hard copy. So be sure that they can read it. Payment method, y'all are going to do check or money order. Y'all don't have an account there. I mean, so don't look at, well, I'll set up an account. They won't set up an account for somebody sending one sole sample. So just send a check or money order. Okay. You're going to want them to email your results. See, it says right there, email results. Then you can copy them, and for your hard copy if you want to, or you can have them on your phone, whatever you want to do. I would recommend that y'all do sample number 1, the routine analysis. That's what most homeowners are going to do, sample number 1. That's going to do pH, which we'll talk about, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and sodium. Those are the main things. It'll also do calcium carbonate, which will tell you how hard our soils are, which makes how hard our water is, which makes the pH high. The micronutrients, a lot of the micronutrients, they're not going to be really important for y'all. If I were in the valley growing onions, I need to know about boron. If boron's too high, it kills onion. That's not important here. So the main ones y'all are going to worry about is nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. All right. You're going to, it gives you the different places you can ship it to. If you FedEx, on the back it has, if you mail it, or if you FedEx or UPS it. It has the 2 addresses you use on the back. See that? Okay. And then here's the bag. Whether you use this bag or a quart Ziploc bag, I don't care. But you do need to put your name on this bag that's the same as the name on this sheet. Because when it hits the lab, this sheet goes to the computer people, this bag goes to the testing people. You don't know how many bags they get that don't have a name, got separated, and never got back to the, you know, you can imagine the number of samples. They don't go, well, they'll just match it back up one day. No, they don't. I would like to do, if you do more than one sample, you can do more than one sample, put a sample ID on it. Right here it says sample ID. I don't care what you put, but write it down. If you send sample number 1 and sample number 2, when you get it back, you'll go, oh crap, which was sample 1 and which did I take it from? I like to write it out. Sample ID garden or lawn. That way when you get it back, you know, again, if you don't know that the sample that labeled garden came from your garden, again, too stupid to master garden. All right. We're going to have a good one today because we're going to show you all how to take a sample. It's wet out there, which is really good. Never collect a wet soil sample and put it in this bag and send it to A&M. They will let it sit there on purpose because it comes in as a clod once it's dry. They literally have to sit there, the interns, and break it apart with hammers. And man, is your sample always going to the last on the pipe because nobody wants to do it. So when you do a wet sample like we're going to do today, take it home and set it out on, you know, I like to do like a big plastic trash bag, spread it out, let it dry naturally. You can speed it up by putting it in the microwave, but if you don't know what you're doing in the microwave, you'll do it too fast and dirt will go everywhere. But just put it on there, let it dry, then put it in this bag or a Ziploc. And if you put it in a Ziploc, again, put your name on it for sure. All right? All right, let me give you this. Yes?
If you send them more than one sample, you have to pay more than one price?
Yes, yes. If you send in 2 samples, you have to pay that routine, is it $12, I think? Twice, yes, it will be $24. Now, I do want y'all to recommend something. If you have, how many of y'all have, okay, like in the hill country we do raised gardens because we have no soil. So we have to do a raised garden. Raised gardens are not native soil. We've brought in soil, we've added compost. It is not indicative of what our native soil is. So I never take a sample of my native soil and go, well, that's my garden too. No, it's not. Now, if you want to do something really neat, if you do have a raised garden or a garden that you really love to death, take a sample of it and take a sample of your native landscape. And I'll tell you why you should do that. A lot of y'all, when the garden comes back, are going to be extremely surprised on how you screwed up your soil. And I mean it sincerely. Most people have added so much compost. Some of our pHs are down real low, Some of our phosphorus is so high, and they can vouch for this, it's actually said on the results, never use phosphorus in this soil again. And they'll go, well, okay, I'll just use compost. Guess what compost has a good amount of? Phosphorus. So, you know, it says to use an inch of compost. Well, yeah, if I use an inch, why don't I just put 6 inches of compost in my garden? That'll really help. Well, the soil can't handle that. And also our nitrogen levels sometimes end up through the roof. And you'll have, you know, tomatoes 6 foot tall with 2 tomatoes on there. I don't understand. I did everything right. Yeah, you have so much nitrogen, all it's doing is growing the plant. So, if you do have 2, I would recommend to make 1 of each. Just curious, because a lot of times it will come back different. All right, if everybody follows me, we're going to show y'all real quick. We'll keep y'all out there for just a minute how to take a soil sample. The pecan trees, I know they're here. Pecan trees in Seguin used to have a condition called zinc rosette. They would start to die back from the tops and just keep dying back. They tried all kinds of things, extension, all the research. What the heck is killing these? Well, one night they mixed up some product and they left it in a metal tank overnight. It pulled the zinc out of that metal. They sprayed it. The stuff they'd done the day before with that same product did nothing. The stuff they did the next day, all of a sudden started making the pecan tree grow right. And what they said was they realized the zinc was the issue. Now we know why it's called zinc rosette. So use a plastic bucket. Use a clean plastic bucket. Don't use a bucket that you've had potting soil in, because potting soil is also rich in nutrients. You'd like to get a good sample. All right. We don't want any of this top stuff. Okay, all of that has nutrients in it. So you don't want to send grass or, you know, a cover crop out of your garden or something like that. So the first thing to do, I actually did this before. You come in here and you just take a sample like this, first of all, and you get it out of the way. Okay, just take you a spot and get it out of the way. All right, now, all the roots, all these trees, everything you have, most feeder roots are in the top 6 to 8 inches of soil. And you go, wait a minute, I know a pecan tree has a taproot. It does have a taproot. And it takes up basically no nutrients. It is an anchoring mechanism. These trees right here, as big as they are, if you notice, I'm already starting to dig up feeder roots that shallow. So when we tell you, hey, when you put dirt on top of your lawn that deep, why are you hurting your trees? Because you just took that root and buried it that much further. If you put concrete over the top, you've cut off the root. But most roots are in the top 6 to 8 inches. So where do we want to take our soil sample? In the top 6 to 8 inches. So I'm going to dig down about 6 inches deep. All right, get that out of the way. And all I'm going to do is take a slice, pure soil, dump it in there. Now, am I done? No. That's only a sample of that spot. What if that's a low spot in your property? Guess what? That's where all the nutrients are going. So, you would take, let's say this is your front yard. Be sure to put everything back, because that looks like the biggest squirrel dug that hole you've ever seen. All right, if this was my lawn, I would take my bucket and I'd probably get 6 or 7 samples throughout here and put them all in that bucket. Then I'm going to mix it up and pour it in the bag. But don't do what a lot of people do. They'll go take one spot in their lawn or garden, or we have 400 acres. You think I'm just going out in the pasture and going, that's the spot right there. So you want to take a representative sample of the area that you're doing, put them in there, mix them all together, and then pour enough to fill the bag up. Now, again, if you'll look, when you first see this soil, see, it's coming out pretty good, isn't it? But watch. When it's in the bag, that's what it's going to do. And they hate you at A&M when this comes up this way. So just spread this out, let it dry, mix it together, put it in that bag, and send it off. Any questions? Yeah.
When does it become a different ID? Because like you were talking about 400 acres and take it from here and there.
Oh, I got you. Like does it finally get to do, like our ranch, our ranch has like a climb grass pasture, a coastal pasture, buffalo grass pasture, and native pasture. So I actually sample all 4 of the big pastures and rather than just go out and say, well, it's 400 acres, I'm just going to walk around, because the coastal and the climb will need different than the native, for instance, which usually doesn't need any fertilizer at all. So a lot of it, but if it's a lawn,
So like lawn,
Lawn would be-
flower bed.
Yeah, flower beds could be different if you don't have. Here's what I want y'all to do. Right now, y'all have no soil testing, so you have no clue. If you put the lawn and flower bed together, it may not be perfect, but it's so much better than what you have right now. The main one I would break off is the garden, because most of us take better care of our gardens. We add more stuff to them. So I would break the garden off for sure, but you could add this first time, if you want to break it apart, not a problem. For me, I would probably the lawn, flower beds and that, I'd probably make one sample out of that. I'd get some out of the lawn, get some out of the flower bed. If you want to break it up, nothing wrong with it. They'll take as many $12 samples as as you want to see it. Some people will do front yard and backyard, and it can be different, but I want y'all to mainly get a sample to where at least y'all say, hey, I know a little bit more about my soil than I did before. I know nothing about it right now. If I asked Ruthie, do you need any phosphorus in your soil? You have no clue. Yep. That's what the soil sample will tell you. I got two master gardeners. Y'all decide which one's asking.
Do we not want to take the soil off the gutter, clean out all the rocks? and any
Yes.
grass pieces?
Yeah, what I normally do is put all this soil in a bucket, lay it out on a plastic bag, even if it is dry, and get out any roots. You don't have to get perfect, but any grass, roots, leaves, because all of those have nutrients. Try to get as much soil. Rocks. Yeah, if you got, like us, rocks aren't going to test. So don't put, chunks of rock in there, caliche or something like that. But try to get, you don't want any of this. You want soil. That's right.
I think, and what he's talking about is so important because even if you've lived someplace for 15, 20 years, it's good to know what you have accumulated there, or if you have just recently moved into our geographic area, buy a pre-owned home or a brand new home, you have no idea what's there. And what he's talking about is awesome information.
Yeah, if you're from like California, I got friends that live out there, you don't need to know anything. Throw the seed on the ground and it will come up. I mean, it's a different world, of environment. But also, how often you take it? In the landscape, I would recommend probably every 3 years. You don't need to take one every year. You're probably not going to do enough to do. In the garden, every other year. Because you're adding more stuff to the garden whether you should be or not. So I like to do every other year in the garden, every 3 years in the landscape. Any other questions before we go back in? Oh, yes, ma'am.
Then what is the application of the information?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
When they give you the soil
We're going to
results
go over
back?
that. When you get the soil back, you're going to see this. It's going to say you need, let's say you did a lawn, let's just say. That's going to be based on 1,000 square feet. They're going to say you need 5/10 of a pound, let's say 1 pound of nitrogen, 1/4 pound of phosphorus, and no potassium. And you're going, okay, well, what does that mean? It didn't tell me how much fertilizer. Do I put a pound of fertilizer out? No. We'll tell you within how we've got an actual session. We'll give you a handout. We'll tell you how to look at that and go, now I know what to do with it. We will show y'all how to do that. But without the sample, we're going to skip that today because you don't have the samples. When you have the samples, it'll mean a lot more. pH is going to be very important. Here's the problem, y'all. Call the county agent's office or the master gardeners, and you go, hey, I'm in Guadalupe County. What's the average soil sample like? They can give it to you. Roughly the pH here is going to be 7 to 7.8, which is alkaline. Nitrogen better be low because nitrogen gets used up real quick. Phosphorus is usually pretty high and potassium is usually pretty high. That's the average of Guadalupe County. Not all of y'all will have it come back that way. So that's why you take your soil samples, but we will show you how to interpret it. All right? All right. Y'all can go back in. Let me get started. We got a couple more things. And now we're getting to the kind of important stuff that's having to do with, again, horticulture, not necessarily grass. You see cultivation tracks in your land. Kind of plant this stuff. We're going to plow it all up now or whatever. That's not the case. Now, you see, when we talk about cultivation, we see aerification and spiking, vertical mowing, top dressing. Is aerification and spiking the same thing? Sounds like it, but it's not. How many of y'all seen those things that pull behind a riding lawnmower or tractor have the spikes that just go in the ground and come back out? I'm glad you called them that. No, they're spikers because they're damn sure aren't aerating. Let me tell you why. Here, I paid you $20 for this. No. All right, this is a spike. It goes in the ground, comes out of the ground, leaves a hole. Dirt doesn't come out. Where'd the dirt go? packed around the edge of the hole. So it didn't aerate, it packed the soil. So if you have a spiker, throw the damn thing away. If your husband's over 6 foot, I didn't say that, okay? So no. Spikers do not aerate. They pack soils because they put a hole in the ground, and when they come out, that soil stays in there. It actually displaces that soil around the edges. So it actually packs the soil. If we use them in pastures, we have a spike that has a piece on the end of it that actually fractures the soil. An aerator pulls a plug out, which we'll show. There's a big difference. If we're mowing our lawns correctly, you'll never have to vertical mow. Vertical mowing is to get rid of thatch. And normally thatch is by 2 reasons. You mow too tall and you use too much nitrogen fertilizer. And you form that thatch underneath there in that what we call a non-aerobic situation, and it just won't break down. And if you're walking across a thatchy lawn, it feels like you're walking on sponges. Yeah. And that dead material won't break down. So, but the way to solve thatch is mow correctly and don't overdo the nitrogen, which we'll talk about fertilizer. And then top dressing, we'll talk about that because that's the biggest screw up that's ever set foot on here. All right, water cultivator. Build up a thatch, mainly compacted soils due to heavy traffic, dogs, kids, whatever, and soil layers. And that a lot comes from top dressing incorrectly, or there's a lot of soils in this county, beautiful sandy loam about that deep, and then a clay layer. And so it rains and water stands forever. And it's not how much rainfall we get, it's how much effective rainfall gets down through the root system. But if you've got soil that deep and in a clay layer, guess how deep the roots are going? Just that deep. They're not going through that clay layer. So you may get a 2-inch rain, 10 days later everything's wilting. Man, why is it wilting? Because the roots are only that deep. And that's why the soil's dried out. So that's why you're going to aerate. There's a reason to aerate. We'll tell you all when and all that good stuff. If you're going to aerate, we recommend you use a hollow core aerator. It pulls these little plugs out. You can see them laying on the ground. And you go, I don't want those stupid things on my lawn. First time you run a mower over them, they're gone. All right. What do roots need? They need 3 things. What 3 things do roots need? Well, one of it's coming out of the sky right now. Water, air, and nutrients. All right. If you have a compacted soil, it might get the water, maybe not all of it. It might get the nutrients. Again, they have a restricted root system, not enough. But that oxygen can be a problem. When you do a hollow core aerator in a compacted soil, roots are lazy, folks. Look at the roots here and look at the roots there. I have this much root or this much root. Which do you think is more drought tolerant? So a compacted soil that has like clay or whatever, if you can get through that clay layer, those roots can get down deeper into soil moisture, the deeper the root system, the healthier it is. Folks, that's for everything. You can say, we're not talking about lawns now, we're talking about plants. If there's a clay layer underneath those oak trees, those roots are staying right up near the surface. So anytime we have a layer that we can break up, it's good. But now you think, well, what clay? Is it just clay? No. This was a golf course. You see where they did the sand? A lot of times when they do golf courses, they'll put sand on them periodically. If you put too much sand or too much top dressing on your lawn, you just formed a layer. And guess what? Roots are lazy. If you formed a sand layer, roots are going to that sand, and that's as deep as they're going. They're going to stay right in that sand. That's why we recommend y'all, when y'all plant a tree or a landscape plant, the dirt that came out of the hole is the dirt that goes back into the hole. Never put potting soil or compost in there. You know why? A&M says, simple. Roots are lazy. They're going to stay in that real neat soil you've provided, and they're never going out. And I've seen trees 10 years old that you can walk over and knock them down, and the roots are right there. That's not all root balling. If you have a hole this big and say, well, I dug it twice as big as it should have been, and I filled it full of potting soil, that's where all the roots stay. They never got out with that native soil because they're going to stay right in there. So it's the same with forming layers that are too thick. If it's sandy, guess what? Roots go down the sand and they stay there. And y'all are looking like, whoa, that's bullshit. No. Root balling, and yes, a lot of people call root girdling root balling. When you plant, we'll get into horticulture. When you plant any plant, landscape plant, a shrub or a tree, the first thing I do is pull out of the pot and I start spreading those roots out. That's why I dig the hole twice as wide as I need, so I get those roots spread out. If you don't, a lot of times the roots will just grow, and they'll end up girdling themselves. The roots actually, I've seen them grow over the top of a tree and girdle. A lot of us say, well, that's root balling. No, that's not really. Root balling is when roots stay in an area and don't get out of it. And that's mainly like you've added a compost or peat moss, or you've added stuff back into the hole, and those roots stay in there. So anytime you plant a plant, though, be sure to spread those roots out. And I've had people before go, "God, the roots are so tight, I can't spread them out." Take a box cutter and just cut the roots and pull them out. Doesn't matter if you cut a bunch of them off, you pull the other ones out and they'll spread better. All right, here's a soil right out about 3 miles from here. Nice sandy loam soil. Look at that clay layer. Roots and moisture stop right there. They don't go any deeper. Look at people that top dress with sand, use sand on a golf course too thick. See, layer here, layer here, layer. Roots are going to that layer. They aren't going any deeper. They're going to just spread out in that sand and stay there. And so that's how drought tolerant your plant is. Let's just leave grass out of it. Shrub, tree, whatever. That's where the roots are staying. So think about that, and we'll talk to y'all about top dressing and how to avoid that. All right, top dressing. Never use topsoil to top dress, ever. Never use landscape mix. Never use garden mix. Never use any of those things. You're going to top dress it. We're going to tie it all together with fertilizer on wind. When you top dress, I top dress in the spring and fall. I'm either going to use compost or I'm going to use peat moss. Peat moss are those, you'll see in those plastic bales you see like at Home Depot or Lowe's. You go, no, wait, I don't want to use peat moss because I'm hurting the environment by taking the peat moss. The peat that you're getting in those is a byproduct of the peat bogs that they're using for other stuff. So we're not the reason they got in the peat bog. That's actually a byproduct. That's actually, mulch was actually a byproduct of the cedar choppers in the hill country. When the cedar choppers used to cut cedar, they'd strip the bark off, they'd cut it up in pieces, and they'd mulch their walkways with it. Back in the day, I know it's hard to believe, but people in the hill country were dirt poor. There's no resources there. They were dirt poor. So they built walkways with flagstone and put cedar bark and just chop it up and put flagstone on top, and that was their walkways. That's how mulch got started, as a byproduct. The peat that you're buying in a square bale, it's a byproduct of them harvesting it for, that's kind of the junk they pull off the edge. But here's why we use it. I use mushroom compost, but I don't care what compost you use.
What is compost exactly?
Okay. Compost is a bunch of plant material that's degraded down to just pure organic matter.
Not food, just.
It can be, to get compost, it's anything that will deteriorate. I can throw food scraps out there, I can put leaves in there, I can put coffee grounds, I can put grass clippings, I could put a tree limb in there if I left it long enough. It's the microorganisms start breaking it down into just pure organic matter. That's what compost is. Now, it's not fertilizer, but it does have nutrients in it. But we don't consider it a fertilizer because it's not nutrient rich, but it does have some nutrients in it. But I like to use mushroom compost over the other one. Here's why. Nothing more than this. The other compost is an animal manure compost, which is mainly horse manure. That's what they use. Horses are fed high salt diets to keep urinary calculi out, those kind of things. Most of the compost that we're getting now has not been completely composted. They're selling it so fast, you'll actually see, if anybody had horses, they call them horse apples, a little droppy.
Is that grass?
Well, no, the sodium in that compost can be pretty high. So sometimes you got to watch. You know, I want a compost that's been composted, so that sodium can build up, and you can still get other weed seeds if it hasn't gone through the heat process. But I use mushroom because it has less salt in it. So, but you don't have to. Let me finish one thing. And I use peat moss, but why do I use those two? Because peat moss and compost that's been done correctly are going to have no weed and grass seeds in them. None. Also, they're slightly acidic, and most of y'all's soil samples are going to come back alkaline, so they don't in that space.
The question I have, what is your thought?
Do I have to answer it? I'm really tired. No. Y'all are killing me here. I'm tired.
It's human waste compost.
No, human waste is called Back in New Braunfels, they used to harvest it, dry it. The smell then went away. Once they dried it, and you could use it like a compost. It is an organic product. It's broken down. A lot of people, I don't recommend using it in gardens in case it wasn't broken down. One of the biggest problems with organic horticulture, why do you always hear the E. coli? Well, only because they're using treated water, sewage water, and if you don't wash the vegetables real well, you can have E. coli in it. So don't think, well, it's organic. It's perfectly safe. Not necessarily. But sewage sludge, which we'll show, is a type of organic compost. Yes. And you can get it from, they call it armadillo dirt, is one brand name of it. They call it armadillo dirt. That is a sewage sludge that's being marketed in plastic bags, and it's perfectly fine. But it is a type of compost. It's been broken down and then dried. All right. When we top dress, we're going to top dress in the spring and fall. We're going to tie it all together when we do the fertilizer, okay? Here we go. I am going to tell you how much to use, and you're going to say that's not near enough. If you see it when you're done, you use too much. And you think, wow, no, I need it. Back in the old days in Corpus, we put enough topsoil, we covered the grass. Couldn't even see the leaves. And it worked through. All right, here's how much we use. 1,000 square foot of lawn, 1,000 square foot of anything, flower beds, whatever. You're going to use 2 large bales of peat moss. Those are what they say, they're pretty simple. They say large. That's 3.8 cubic feet. But you don't need to know that. It says small, medium, large. And the large one's about the size of a square bale of hay. About that size. You're going to use 2 of those per 1,000 square foot of ground. That's not much, folks. Or you're going to use 1 cubic yard of compost per 1,000 square foot of lawn. And you're going, I don't know how big a cubic yard is. The people you're buying it from will know exactly how big a cubic yard is. All right? So, 1 cubic yard of compost or 2 large bales of peat moss, spring and fall, will cover 1,000 square foot. How do you spread it? You get real fancy and hire ABC Home people on that. They'll come out and put it all out. They're going to put more out. Why are they going to put more out? Because it's dirt cheap and they want you to see it on your lawn because you paid for it. Well, that's not really good. You don't want that. Or you can buy, we've got one, I never use it. It's a deal that looks like the ticket things. You put the ticket and spin it. It's got the expanded metal all the way around it. You pour it in there. It's got a handle. You just push it and it all falls out. The easiest way is just take it, open it up, dump it out, or take a cubic yard, take a leaf rake, just kind of rake it around. It doesn't have to be perfect, folks. It doesn't have to be perfect. The thing is, we don't want this much. We want this much. I want small amounts over more time than large amounts at one time. The soil can't handle. The microbes can't handle when you overload them. They can't handle it. So what happens? When that water ran off with the seed, it took that compost nutrient rich with it, ended up in the Guadalupe River or the Comal River and all that.
It landed down at the hill where I didn't want it.
Yeah, and also the nutrients went with it, but one day they're going to end up in the water, and that's not good. So small amounts more often than large amounts at one time. So you're going to do it spring and fall, and I'll tell y'all when in a minute, the exact dates when we get to the fertilizer. All right, irrigation management. If y'all don't know about aerating, oh my God, y'all know nothing about watering. Most of y'all, how many of y'all have a water, automatic water, like a sprinkler system? You can raise your hands. I'm not going to bite you. Okay. And then I'm a hose dragger. I don't have them. In the hill country, it's hard to dig in that rock. And technically, they're supposed to dig 12 inches deep. No, 12 inches deep. And they're supposed to be. So I always use a certified licensed installer because they have to go by code. The guy that drives up said, hey, we can put that in. Not like the same guy, he drove up a week before trimming your trees. So be careful. Because if you're aerating a lawn, and you have a sprinkler system and they only put the line in the ground that deep, you're going to aerate your line. So anyway, how many of y'all know on your sprinkler systems how long to run them? Most of y'all run them based on that whoever installed them told you. Run them, it's all set for you. Comes on 3 times a week, runs 15 minutes, whatever. You have no clue how much it's putting out. How many of y'all as master gardeners, you're going out there, know how much this sprinkler puts out? Well, we're going to show y'all. All right, so when do you water? I don't care if it's lawn, your garden, your trees, your orchards, your grapes. When do you water? Well, not night, you water late night, early morning. You water right before the sun comes up. You want to finish by the sun coming up, and why? Because any water that got on the leaves, the sun will dry that and reduce your chance of disease. You don't really want to water like when you come home from work at night and let that water sit, and you're going, well, this is doing it right now. I agree, but the less we do that, the better. So you don't want to water like at 6 o'clock at night and let that water stay on those leaves all night long. That just has a better chance of disease. You're not going to get disease right now, it's too cool. But you do that in April and May, and you're looking at disease forming. So, most people water early in the morning, before the sun comes up. Why? Wind is low, evaporation rates are low, pressure is usually the highest if you're in a subdivision. Water in the evening, remember that keeps water on the leaves of whatever you're doing. I don't care if it's garden, I don't care what it is. Water on the leaves during mild conditions are going to cause disease. Was that the grass's fault or the plant's fault? No, it's your fault. Quit planting the grasses, okay? You did it. Water deep and frequently. And that's the problem with automatic sprinklers sometimes. They're set to come on like 3 times a week and they water real shallow. So all the roots come up to the water. And you may have roots that deep. Well, that's not a real drought-tolerant plant. And that's where all the plants are out there. So we want to water down to 6 to 8 inches. Get those roots to go down into the soil. That's why we aerate. Remember to get those roots to get down in there because they're more drought tolerant. Roots that are this deep are more drought tolerant than roots that are that deep. You have a puzzled look on your face. Am I saying something you don't understand? She either doesn't agree with me, she's a hip person that's going to kill me as soon as I have to look like, what is he saying?
No, okay. I have, well, it's not like that, but I have a spring, but then I have the drip.
The drip, and we'll talk about calibrating the drip, no problem. Because people say, well, I use a drip system. That's very efficient. Now you know how long to run it is not. I've seen people turn drip systems on and have a bigger water bill than they had when they had a sprinkler because they didn't know how long to run it. So we're going to show y'all. Now, if you were a master gardener and they came to Bria came to Bria and said, Bria, during the summer months, how much water do I need to put? We're talking about lawns now. How much water do I put on my lawn? Bria goes, I was in the class. About an inch a week. A&M has actually come out with research and said we can go with 60% of that. So about 6 tips. So for this, about an inch a week. During the spring and fall, usually we use less water. Why? Usually the temperatures are lower and usually we get a little more rainfall. And in the winter, you might not have to water at all. But remember what I said. Most roots grow during the winter. So if we have one of those really dry winters, which so far we've been okay, if we have one of those really dry winters, every once in a while I will shoot a little irrigation in my landscape to make sure there's enough moisture for those roots to grow during the winter when everything's dormant. All right? So, Bria's at this conference and they walk up and, how much? An inch. So you thought, man, I really helped that person. I went home, I told him an inch. So you got an automatic sprinkler, Dominique's got an automatic sprinkler system. I've got a sprinkler, doesn't matter if it's this one or a different one. I get home and I go, how long do I run this thing to get an inch? Well, damn, Bria didn't tell me that. Well, the next time I see her. I mean, so if we're just giving information and not telling them how to do it, we're not helping them. And in fact, we actually get them more frustrated. So we're going to show y'all how to do a simple water audit. And I want y'all to go home and do one. And I want you to help your neighbors do one, unless you hate your neighbors. We're going to do a water audit. It's a method of evaluating your irrigation system, whether it's automatic sprinklers or regular sprinklers. It tells the application rate and the distribution. For instance, most of the sprinklers that are coming on late at night, early in the morning, have you gone up to look at them to see if they're actually spraying where they're supposed to? Are any of the heads broke? Are they leaking? No. I drove by one day, we had to go to Abilene last week with some show steers. I went through a place at 5 o'clock in the morning, and one of his heads was broke, and it was just a geyser. He was sound asleep. He didn't know it. Well, that area is just watering about this big. The rest is not getting watered at all. Most people aren't checking them. They just do they work. They're automatic. And then it's vital for proper irrigation of any type. Any type. So we're going to show you how to do it. All right. This piece of the yard, right here, is one zone. If y'all have an automatic sprinkler system, you know what a zone is. You may have 4, 5, 6, 9, 10 zones. In other words, a zone will come up, water for a length of time. Zone 2 will come up. Zone 3, 4, you know, you may skip a zone if it's something that doesn't need. You can use these Aggie catch cans. Now, they come from A&M. They're little funnels. They're calibrated, and they sell them to you. Ever since Johnny Manziel went there, A&M does not need any more money. So don't buy those things from them. Come on, man. Just go.
It's over here.
Oh, man. Go down.
She's got you flustered.
She has that look. She has that killer look in her eyes. And she keeps reaching in her pocket like, oh, man, I'm carrying. That's what it's in New York. I go, hey. She says, what is, she doesn't understand I'm saying water. She goes, you mean water?
No,
Yeah, water. What's this water stuff you're talking about? We have a lady we work with Parkinson's patients on exercise, and she's the instructor's from New York. And we finally got her saying y'all and all that. And we got her saying water. And because we won't answer otherwise. If she says you all or you got, we'll stand. Anyway, so you're going to go down and you're going to buy little straight-sided containers. We used to use tuna cans. But my wife buys tuna in those packets now. You were trying to set those damn packets up in the grass, they blow over, that's how they don't work. So just go down and get a straight-sided container. Don't use your spouses. Don't take this back and wipe it out, put it back in the cabinet when you're done. But what we're going to do is this zone, if this was a zone for the sprinkler systems, I'm going to spread them out there. Or here is this sprinkler. This sprinkler comes out to here on the edge. So I'm going to put one here. I'm going to put one in the middle. I'm going to do the same over here. I'm going to do the same over here. I'm going to throw you one. And I'm going to put one behind you. And I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to put one here. I'm going to put one here. I'm going to scatter them out in the pattern. All right. Same with the automatic sprinklers. You can take them off of automatic and put them on manual. If you don't know how, whoever installed them will show you how. First of all, if you have an automatic sprinkler and you do not have a rain guard on there, you need to get one immediately. They're cheap. They're cheap. They're a little attachment that you set whatever you want. If you get a half-inch of rain, sprinkler system does not come on the next slide. How many of y'all driven down city? It's just rained 3 inches and some business has sprinklers just going off everywhere. Is that the grass's fault for using too much water? No, it's ours. Quit blaming the landscape. We're doing it. That grass or plant didn't reach up and turn that sprinkler system on. So get a rain guard. They're super cheap, under $20. And you set them, and it's tied in. They can hook them up in a few minutes. You might be able to hook them up yourself. You're pretty good at that kind of stuff. And you set it like half inch, it skips at that side. Save money. And if you live in like Dallas up, they put freeze guards on them. Because if I'm spraying and it goes out into the intersection, and someone hits that intersection, slides through and hits somebody and kills them, guess who gets sued? You do. If you have a freeze guard, you don't. You can get sued, which won't. Anyway, so we're going to do the old math and the new math way of doing this, in case y'all don't want to do math. All right. The new math. Put the containers around. Turn the water on, whether it's an automatic system or the sprinkler. Turn it on. I'd like to kind of do it when they're going to come on. So first thing in the morning, if you're going to water, maybe do it, try to do it close to when you're going to do it, because sometimes the pressures will be different. Run it for 15 minutes. Run the sprinkler on the sprinkler system for 15 minutes, turn it off. Go around with a ruler, measure all the containers, add them all up, divide by the number of containers. Let's say it's 1/4 of an inch. If you got 1/4 of an inch in 15 minutes, how much did it put out in an hour? There you go, 1 inch. See, that's why we do the old math. Because y'all had to, let me think. All right, the old math is run the damn sprinkler until you get 1 inch of water. The only thing you had to do is look when you started, and and you'd be surprised how many people forgot to look when they started. Okay, it's 2:30. Oh crap. When did I start? So look when you started, run them until you just walk around periodically. Oh, I've got 1 inch. Turn it off and say that took this length of time. Now, If you say, well, Dennis did it with his sprinkler, mine kind of looks like that, I don't need to do it, Dennis did it. Well, here's the deal. I bought 3 of these highly scientific sprinklers at H-E-B. Exact color and on the shelf together. I did this demonstration. This sprinkler right here puts an inch of water out in 56 minutes. That's 1 inch an hour. Pretty close. Y'all don't see that. Okay. The other 2, one put an inch out every 42 minutes, one put an inch out every hour and 20 minutes. Same brand, same color, same sprinkler, same shelf. So don't go highly scientific. Also, they got these little screens on them. If that gets a little clogged up, oh, guess what? That can mess you up. So don't say, well, Dennis said his did an inch an hour, mine does an inch an hour. No, you need to check your sprinkler. It's real simple. Your sprinkler, if you have 5 zones, don't just do zone 1 and go, all the other zones are the same. No, you may have a broke sprinkler head, you may have one that's clogged up, that's not putting out enough. So check all your zones, or at least do a majority of them, and check your sprinkler. And don't just go, well, there's a gray one that's very similar to this. It puts an inch every hour and 40-something minutes. It looks pretty close to this one. But it's, so don't assume, well, I got this little 3-bar one, it's got to be the same. Go home and do it. And then, why wouldn't you help, as a master gardener, why wouldn't you help other people? Let me tell you a little demonstration. Can y'all hand me these back? My wife puts her salads in. I'm sorry.
Chill lunch.
Yeah. Don't tell her. Don't tell her. Okay, here's a test we did to show you how this is important. My last county, oh yes ma'am.
When you buy those sprinklers, does it say on there?
Nope, does not. And most people, you just kind of run them till you feel like it's about right.
The pressure's not.
And yeah, the pressure, right? So I always like to kind of check them if I'm going to run my sprinklers, like maybe check those in the morning because that's when they're going to come on. It doesn't have to be at 5 in the morning, but you know, maybe 8 in the morning. If you're going to water, like the only time you can water is after work because you work, well, check them in the evening. But kind of check them, but no, they don't say, they say how much you paid for. That's all they say. And don't, if you go to a great nursery, like if you go to the Natural Gardener, John Drungle will sell his sprinklers and tell you what they're calibrated for. And I just told you, I bought 3 exact color, same brand, and they were 45 minutes different. So check it. All right. My last county I was in for, oh yes.
Question over here.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Sorry, so is 1 inch of water like what you're looking for? So that's what you want?
Yeah, remember, Bria had that deal that said during the summer months, your landscape needs about 1 inch of water.
Okay.
So if that sprinkler right here, I could do it 2 ways. I could run it for an hour, or more than likely soil is going to have trouble handling that much at one time. I could run 30 minutes. I could run it another day 30 minutes, or I could run it 30 minutes, let it, put it in the other areas, and then come back and finish. You never want to start, once it starts to run off or puddle, you're wasting water. It's not filtering down to the plant. But that's what, then Bria actually helped the family by saying, you need to check your sprinklers, and then you do the 1 inch. Yes, ma'am.
I was trying to see if I had it in my notes. Is it 1 inch per week?
Yes, 1 inch per week. And we actually have found in our landscape that we can go with 60% of that. So really it's 6 intensity during the summer, a little over ½ inch, which is not, now that's not going to keep your landscape looking like a park, but it's going to keep it alive and healthy.
Just gonna make sure it's low.
Yeah, if it starts to run off, you might have to run your sprinkler for 15 minutes and go to the other spots and come back. Because once water starts running off, that means it's moved from where you're watering. Absolutely. All right. Oh, yes, sir.
I do have one quick. During the summer, like this last summer, and I watered my front yard, I still developed cracks in the soil. How do you stop that?
I don't know how much you were watering.
3 times a week.
3 times a week. You'll probably water it 3 times a week at low rates. And that soil, you weren't getting water but about that deep. That soil's going to dry out from below and crack. I need to water less frequently and deeper so that soil doesn't dry like this and start cracking. Our clay soils will crack. Now that's an educated guess, but I bet if you go home and calibrate and see how long you're watering, you probably will water in small amounts 3 times a week. Kept the soil up here wet, but the soil underneath dried out during the summer, and then cracked it.
Gotcha.
All right, let me go to this other part. My last county I was in was Wilson County, and in the city of Floresville, we wanted to test this. So what we did was, we got people, if you were on a water well with no meter, you could participate, but we couldn't find any data because we had no way to monitor your water. But if you wanted to participate, we didn't have a master gardener back then. We used our 4-H clubs, our garden clubs, extension committees, and we'd go out and calibrate sprinklers for people. And we'd show y'all how to do it, and y'all would help people. We had about 2,200 households participate. They allowed us to get their water bills the 2 previous years during those summer months. We started in May, and we started in May and finished in June. So we checked their water bills. They allowed us to get their water bills so we could do a comparison. And then we did 2 years of history, and we did 2 years in the study. So we kind of took out the environment. And what we did is, we calibrated their sprinklers, and we told them, there's some computer programs out there with weather stations. We told everybody how much to water. We put the data out and said, okay guys, we need a ½ inch of water on your landscape this week. Everybody knew to run their sprinklers or sprinkler system, and they got real close. All right. During the study, about 2,300 households, we saved 2 years in a row, each year, 10 million gallons of water by following those directions in 2,300 households. Folks, there's subdivisions in San Antonio that are 5 times that big. 10 million gallons by just calibrating your sprinkler and then listening to breathe. Now, folks, that's what a master gardener does. Not sit here and just gather it all and go home. I'll just do mine because I'm going to save water. Don't be afraid to help your neighbors because you'll have a healthier lawn, or because you'll water probably a little more infrequently but deeper, so you'll maybe avoid the cracks. You'll have a lower water bill. You'll actually look at your automatic sprinklers and see that maybe the heads are shooting up rather than out. But folks, 10 million gallons of water in 2,300 households, 1 month. 1 month. That's a lot of water. Now, we've got to quit blaming the landscape. The landscape didn't use it extra. We did. So that's why water audit is so important. All right? Yes?
Do water companies do these? Like, why isn't this information passed on to the water companies?
Water companies sell water.
Like,
I shouldn't have been smart
the
enough.
city, I mean the city.
No, they do have some information out there, but they put it out in what? They'll put it out in like a brochure on your bill, and you can't understand it. I mean, you're reading about it. I don't understand it. And here's why we want to do this stuff. Water companies, what they're going to do to us first is like, we have NBU, New Braunfels Utility. They're going to price the water. Up to the first 5,000 gallons is this much, then to the next 5,000 is this much, then this, anything over about 15,000 a month, you better have a deep set of pockets. If that doesn't work, they're going to do what New Mexico does. Every house will have 2 meters. Inside meter, outside meter. They'll automatically shut your outside meter down during droughts. Now, I don't want them doing that. So why don't we be more proactive, calibrate our sprinklers, and put out the right amount of water, and we can stop that. Because they don't mind at first making a lot of money off of it, but then when it gets tight and they don't have enough water, what are they going to do? Start shutting meters down. And folks, they do it in New Mexico all the time. So don't think they won't do it in Texas. All right, nutrient management. We're going to go over, but we're going to leave one part out. Your soil sample. Because you haven't even taken it yet. I'm going to give you an example, but we're going to leave one part out. If y'all are bad on water, you're even worse on fertilizer. Okay? Let me explain a couple of quick things. Number one, plant roots don't know the difference between organic and synthetic fertilizers. They do not know. All nitrogen goes to inorganic nitrogen picked up by the roots. Didn't know it came out of the back of a cow or a bag. There's only one thing you do not use. A&M says, do not use weed and feed fertilizers. Do not. Here's why. Number one, the herbicide they put in the weed, in a fertilizer, is a pre-emergent. It kills the seeds as they emerge. If I'm going to kill my spring weeds, do you know when I need to be putting my pre-emergent herbicide out? Right now. I should not be here talking. I should be putting it out so when it rains this week it puts in the ground. Do you think it's time to fertilize our landscape right now? No. No. Plants aren't growing. Plants aren't growing. Okay, and I'm gonna kill my fall weeds, I wanna put my weed killer out the end of August. You think it's a good time to fertilize the end of August? Man, you talk about smoking the landscape. So number one, the timing doesn't match. Number two, you get this cool, damp weather, and some of those pre-emergence herbicides can cause damage to some of your landscape plants. They won't kill them, but they'll burn the crap out of them. So, never use weed and feed. And what do you find at most of these places? Weed and feed. Yeah, tell your friend, don't just walk in Home Depot being a smart ass. But if you know people say, you know, and my son in Austin, I mean, he knows because he's heard it. I mean, he tells his friends all in that subdivision, hey, don't use weed and feed, because that's what they pick up. They say, oh, it kills the weeds and fertilizes. Well, this is a pretty neat product. The other thing we see is most homeowners don't know how big the area is they're fertilizing, whether it's your garden, or your lawn, or your vineyard, or your orchard. Just use the whole damn bag. Okay, last year on our ranch, our fertilizer bill was $48,000. Big ranch, a lot of grass. And they always say, well, them ranchers and farmers are the ones polluting our environment. You really think my mom's 95 years old, that little Italian woman. My dad passed away at 91, she's 95. I work for her for free. She did many of my years, man. Yeah, she's a scary Italian woman from New York originally. Anyway, that's what I'm thinking. But anyway, when they came in on Ellis Island, their family came in, that's where they checked their papers in. Yep, that's where mine came in from Milan, Italy. Anyway, I work for her. Do you really think I'm going, hey mom, let's put an extra 5,000 fertilizer in. They already spent 48, let's go 55. Farmers and ranchers aren't spending any more on products they have to. You know why?
It's expensive.
It's expensive, and we aren't getting a return on it. But homeowners, bag of fertilizer, $17. I need a quarter of a bag. I don't want to store this stuff, just use the whole damn bag. And I've seen y'all do it time and time. And what happens to all those nutrients? It runs down the hill, or runs out, it's in the rivers. That phosphorus bloom, you can walk on the Guadalupe during the summertime because that phosphorus bloom puts all that green scum. You're hurting the environment, but let's blame it on the landscape. All right, so whether you use organic or synthetic, we're going to tell you what the difference is in a minute. But no matter what, I've got a 100-pound pile of fertilizer out here. You envision whatever you want to. 100 pounds of cow poop or 100 pounds of granular fertilizer. I don't care what you envision. There's 100 pounds of it here. The first number is always the percent nitrogen. Always. This pile has 15% nitrogen. How many pounds of nitrogen is in that pile? 100 pounds. 15% of 100. 15 pounds of nitrogen. Nothing gets by it all. Okay. Don't pull your damn phone out. Simple math. But 100 pounds, 15% nitrogen, there's 15 pounds of nitrogen. Okay? The next number is always phosphorus. The middle number is always phosphorus. There's 5 pounds of phosphorus in this 100 pounds. How many pounds of phosphorus is that? 5. There you go. Y'all are catching up now. The third number, these are the macronutrients, is always potassium. This 100 pounds has 10% potassium. How many pounds of potassium? 10. Okay, so 15 pounds of nitrogen, 5 pounds of phosphorus, that's 20, plus 10 pounds of that's 30 pounds of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. We might have a few micronutrients. What's the rest of it? Inert ingredients. And everybody goes, well, Dennis, why can't you just buy straight nitrogen? Because you can't. The highest nitrogen you can buy is anhydrous ammonia. It's 82% nitrogen. It's in a bin that looks like a butane tank. And when it comes in, you have to put it into the soil or it goes to gas. We used to use that on the ranch because it's real cheap. My dad was a Texas Ranger. Like I said, you did not mess with my dad. He was mean. Texas Rangers they're tough. Anyway, we quit using it because we would lock the bottom of our tanks and the meth dealers would still break into them because that's what you cook meth with. Now, my dad would have shot them just for being in the barn and they'd still steal them. They'd cut it and drain them and cook meth. So most people have quit using it because, except the meth cookers, they still use it. Anyway, so you can't get pure nitrogen. And if you did, it burn the heck out of it. So, it's inert ingredients. It's inert ingredients. It's a mineral composition that breaks down the same whether it's in a pile of manure or a bag of fertilizer. Does not matter. What matters is the nitrogen. It's very soluble, which means if I put nitrogen in the soil and have a heavy rain, a lot of that nitrogen will leach out. It is soluble. It dissolves in the water and will move out. That's why if y'all get your soil test and y'all have tons of nitrogen in there, that's not a good thing. That usually means you're putting way too much because most of our nitrogen should be fairly low. Why? It's being used by the plants, it's being used by the roots, and when rainfall happens, it'll leach some of it out. All right. Your bag fertilizer, we use this on the ranch a lot, 4600. A lot of people around here use ammonium sulfate, 2100 with a little sulfur in it because sulfur helps with a higher pH. My point is, the fertilizer, the nitrogen in this lasts about 8 weeks. Okay? About 8 weeks. After 8 weeks, most of that nitrogen you put out is gone. All right? So how do you solve that? 2 ways. The urea we put out is sulfur coated. It put a sulfur coat. Some people will have a clay coating around it. All that does is it makes it break down slower. Or, look down here. Compost, sewage sludge, manures. The only difference between organic and synthetic fertilizer, organic fertilizer's nitrogen breaks down in about 12 weeks. The synthetics that aren't coated break down in about 8 weeks. Only difference. Organic's the nitrogen lasts longer. So, I will use organics more in the spring. I won't use them in the fall. I don't want nitrogen way out into January. So I'm going to use more of my bag fertilizer that would be gone in about 8 weeks. And we'll tell you when to put it out. But I don't want nitrogen way out into January and maybe early February. I don't want top growth. And that's what will happen. But that's the only difference. So the master gardeners, you'll hear all this. All synthetic fertilizer is bad. Only go organic. Well, here's the problem. A lot of people, the organics, if you're great, okay, if I get manure off cattle that have grazed the pastures and sprayed with herbicide, guess what's in the manure? Put that in your garden. It'll kill those tomato plants just slick as a whistle. So, it's not the product, it's how you use it. Don't use weed and feed. That's for sure. And you're going to get a manure, get it from a reputable source. Don't go to your neighbor's farm and dig it up out of the pins, because if they use the herbicide, it's going to possibly be in that manure, and it loves to kill gardens, man. We see it all the time. Garden, man, something's wrong with my garden. Well, we ask different questions. Well, I used some manure from a neighbor, and we ask them, did you herbicide? Yeah. Well, there you go. So, that's the difference. So, the coated or the organic will last 12 weeks or so with nitrogen. The non-coated lasts 8. That's the difference. All right. How much fertilizer do I use? I don't care what it is. Turf grass, gardens. Take a soil sample, because we can't answer you that question. I cannot answer that question without a soil sample. I'm going to make an educated guess, and I'll get close maybe, but like you're building a new garden with new soil, it would be a real educated guess. Because I don't, without a soil sample, I really don't know what you use, so I have to make an educated guess. On the native soil, we could get close. And you're seeing this, never apply more than 1 pound of nitrogen. Don't even worry about that. When you get your soil samples back, you're going to see something like, this soil needs 1.8 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square foot. That says never apply more than 1 pound. So we're going to split the applications. You can't put it all in at one time. But don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. When you get your soil samples back, we're going to go over with you so you can break them down. I'm going to give you timing. That's the most important thing. All right, don't worry about this. Don't even read this. I'll tell you. For the spring, 30 days after the last killing frost. Who the hell knows when that date is? I mean, there's averages, but I mean, our weather's been so strict. We didn't get a freeze this year till way late. But it was a good one when it came. So, and then in the fall, 30 days before the first killing frost. Well, that means we could fertilize right about Christmas. Because, it didn't freeze till mid-January. So, don't worry about these days. All right. If you're going to aerate, top dress, and fertilize. Now remember, aeration only if you need it. I'd only probably do it about every 3 years. Doesn't need to be done every year. And do not aerate this spring. Oh, wait a minute, you just told us.
Yeah.
We went through a tough year this last year. Our landscape suffered. When you first aerate, you actually do a little bit of damage because you're pulling plugs out. I want to see, hopefully we have a pretty good year. Hold off till the fall this time because we had a pretty rough summer, but really we had a rough fall. Remember, at the ranch we went 72 days without any rain. So that grass and landscape suffered. I don't want to aerate this spring. I want to wet.
Would you do the same for pasture?
Pastures, probably. I would probably, we always aerate in the spring in our pastures. But when we do it in the spring. So the pastures are a little easier because they're larger scale than landscape. So spring is fine for them.
And every 3 years?
About every 3 years. Or you can take a sample and see. How do you sample it? Take a screwdriver, if there's soil moisture, just shove it in the ground. They make these fancy probes. Take a screwdriver, shove it in the ground. If you start hitting something out in the hill country, they call rock. If you hit something and it just won't go anymore, kind of dig. You may have hit that clay layer.
Yeah.
That may be a reason to aerate.
Yes.
Yeah, if that would be, and then you'd say, I need to aerate. Now, if you're in sandy soils, you never aerate. Yes, ma'am.
What do you do with rock? I mean, I feel like I'm growing rock.
Well, with rock, you don't normally have to aerate. The rocks are doing it for you.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, they really are, because the rocks are breaking up the soil.
Question?
Oh, I'm sorry, Jim. Yes, if you've got a bunch of rocks, aeration is not going to be that effective. So that's good, though, in a way. Yes?
So your deciding factors for aeration, is that like the amount of rainfall? Like what are you,
Okay,
you're doing
aeration.
a soil
I'll get back to the type. Soil type, the amount of moisture, and do I have a need for it? All right, if I have deep sands or a lot of rocks, probably never going to aerate. Because the soil type's going to, deep sands are not going to have a soil clay layer like stuck down in there if it's a deep sand. Now, I've seen some sands that were that deep with a clay layer, but normally it's soil type. You have deep sands like in Laverne, anybody around Laverne? Deep sands, you're just hope some organic matter right there. Secondly, is moisture. I never want to aerate when it's real dry. I want a little bit of soil moisture. I don't mean it has to be muddy, but I need some soil moisture because it's like trying to disc a field up and it's bone dry. You can't get this in the ground. So I need to aerate if there's some moisture. And then the environment. If the landscape's gone through a severe stress, wait 1/2 season before you aerate. So we went through a really hard stress this fall. And this winter, up till now, hasn't been that wet. We've actually had a bunch of little small rains, but we haven't had a lot of rain. So I'm going to hold off this spring because of what we went through in the fall, and hopefully then in the fall things will be better. So those are the main things I'm looking for if I'm going to aerate. And we don't need to aerate every year. Normally, just rule of thumb about if you need to, about every 3 years. I've seen people that just aerate a strip where their dogs run. They might aerate that. You may not have to aerate the whole environment. Or if you got rocks, it's kind of hard to aerate those rocks anyway. Okay, so when do we do it? If we need to aerate, and we're going to top dress, and we're going to fertilize. In the spring, which will be the next time to do it, just remember April 15th. It's an easy date to remember, tax day. Now, I don't mean you have to be out there on April 15th, but that time of year, at mid-April, grass does not start growing on grass or pasture grass until the nighttime temperature averages 60 degrees and higher. That's not till at least mid-April. Until it averages. I don't mean we hit a 60. We might hit a 60 tomorrow. Nighttime. Now this is the lows, not the highs. The lows. The lows. When the nighttime lows average 60 degrees and higher, grass starts to grow. Pastures or lawns. That's when I want my fertilizer out there. If I fertilize now, you know what's going to happen? Most of it, it leaches off. Because nothing's really taking it in to grow the top. All right. So around the middle of April. Now, in the fall, you're looking at latter part of September to the middle of October. End of September to the middle of October. You don't want to fertilize early September because in Texas that's just called late August. I mean, really, it's as hot in early September as it is in August. So about the middle of September, when it starts to cool off a little bit, to about first first part of October. That's when you fertilize in the fall. You're gonna aerate in the fall, that's when you do it, and you're gonna when you top dress. Now, everybody asks, which do I do first? Do I put my fertilizer, top dress, and then aerate, or do I aerate and then put my top dress and fertilize? It does not matter. Some people say, well, I want to throw it all out there and then have my aerator punch it in. Well, actually, they're punching them out. But anyway, or I want to have the holes made so that I throw my fertilizer or top dress and it goes down in there. It doesn't matter, folks. Don't get hung up on that. Just do it. Just do it.
But just if you have birds,
Well,
because like.
I gotta have that one narrowed down. Okay. What do you call it?
Well, just like you have grackles coming eat all your stuff.
What's that?
The seeds.
I'm not a seed
They're not
retailer.
seeding them, fertilizing.
Fertilizer. They're not gonna, I hope they do fertilizer. They won't do it with water. Yeah, the fertilizer, whether it's manure or the birds won't get this. They won't get the top dressing, they won't get the fertilizer. Now, if you're seeding, yes, it would matter, but because the birds can get it. They're not gonna get this. We're not seeding. I would never seed when I do all these other things because fertilizer could burn it. Also, that's too early. I never seed until early May. I never even start.
How about with balsams?
Like what's the fall seeds?
Like rye.
Ryegrass in the lawns? Ryegrass?
I'm in the pasture.
What pasture? Oh, okay. So you oversee your
I'm a
pasture?
farmer, yes.
Okay, we don't ever oversee pasture. A&M recommends we don't do that. Here's why. We'll get into that. Lawns are pastures. Ryegrass uses a ton of nitrogen. And what happens is, yes, you can have your cattle graze it, or you can have your lawn look real pretty during the winter months. But you're using a ton of fertilizer and a ton of water, so your summer perennials that we really rely on are going to start off way behind. Because water and nutrients are being used, and if we have a dry spring, we've seen pastures devastated with overseeding of ryegrass. Same with lawns. You got to water those things during the wintertime, and they're going to use nutrients, you got to fertilize them, and they're going to use water. And they will set you back on the ground. So A&M recommends do not overseed pastures.
But I thought you were supposed to do that so that you could till it under in the spring and
No. You can use a cover crop like legumes that will deteriorate themselves in a pasture or a lawn and release nitrogen. But we don't want to till our pastures up. We might want to aerate them, but we don't want to till them. We might have a little talk here. But no, we don't overseed. We can put cover crops in our pastures or our lawns. We can overseed them with clovers, legumes, and things like that. Or we put our gardens. We can use cowpeas in our garden. We can use cowpeas in pastures. The cattle can still graze them when they die and we don't till them under. When they die and start to break down, they'll release nitrogen in the soil. They'll do the same in your lawns.
A cowpea?
Cowpea.
Like a cowpea?
No, cowpeas. P-E-A.
Like a
Cowpeas.
like
Like a snow pea. They call them cowpeas, huh? Yes, I would raise your lawn and cowpeas, they're snow peas, they're lagoons. That's a good question. She might leave here going, he told them to have cows pee and any lagoon that you oversee in a pasture or a lawn or a garden, put a cover crop in a garden, those will be tilled under in a garden. But in a lawn or a pasture, we recommend cover crops that when they break down, they'll release their nutrients, but you're not plowing them up or disking them up. Okay, last thing. This. Okay, weed management. We're not going to get into weed management very much, which is going to disappoint some of y'all. I'm going to hand y'all a handout out next time that has some neat little websites on the back. It's got fertilizer on the information on the front, which we'll use with your soil test. So we'll do that next time when you get them. This is just, I don't know if y'all can do this or not. Comal County. I was trying to think. They get with their, once they sign up, they get them to take their soil test ahead of time, and they have them for the first class. And that way, when you'll have your soil test, you bring them with you, and then that first class we can, and that way you know everybody has them usually, because some of y'all will go home and get them, and some of y'all will forget, and I'll say, hey, y'all have your soil samples, and I'll see some heads go. That means they didn't do theirs. So, just a thought.
No, that's a good.
When I do Comal,
That's
I'm
a
doing
good
Comal in
idea.
March, and they'll have their soil samples ready, and so we'll be able to address them right off the bat as we talk about pH.
That's a very good idea, but there's probably 5 people in here that just signed up within the
Yeah,
last 6
well,
or 7 days.
They're gonna be late, yeah. But they can learn from the other samples as they're listening to pH, and that way when they get there, no, so it's just a thought.
Thank you.
Anyway, on the back of this fertilizer sheet, there's some weed website, but let me tell you about weeds. Pasture or lawn. Why do weeds occur? Weeds occur because the turf thinned out. Either we overgrazed it during a drought, or maybe the ground cracked because the water went right, we mowed it too short, and we planted Bermuda underneath trees. So, weeds are going to occur when you don't have a healthy turf. And we've told you how to have a healthy turf. I've never sprayed a herbicide on all of them. Few weeds, we do have here, you'll get a few of them, but what I'm saying is, we have a healthy turf, managed right. That thick turf, whether it's a thick turf or a thick coastal rootgrass field, is going to inhibit weeds. Now, we will spray them on the pasture because the cattle will graze enough that we'll get weeds. But in a lawn, I've never sprayed. I've never had to spray weeds. So, proper management is going to save herbicide. Why spray any herbicide? Whether it's, well, I'll use organic. Like I said, some of the most dangerous herbicides known to mankind are organic herbicides. Extremely lethal. So why use any? Well, I'm not going to use Roundup. I'm going to use vinegar. If you use vinegar incorrectly, it'll make Roundup look like a sweetheart. And vinegar can sterilize soil. Because you know what? Here's what it says. This is example. A tablespoon in a gallon covers 500 square feet. Well, shit. 5 tablespoons in a gallon, and I really soak it good, it'll really do good. It kills all the microbes in the soil. Now you have sterile soil. So, don't just say organic or synthetic. So the thing is, manage for a healthy turf, and you'll knock 99% of the weeds out. So you won't be spraying a lot of weeds. A few things to remember about weeds. They occur with thinner weed and turf. You plant Bermuda underneath those oak trees we just did. You notice that St. Augustine, it's not managed very well, but you notice it still has solid cover. They don't fertilize it half the time. They mow it too short. But you notice it still had good cover. You notice the area I dug in was the only place there were a few weeds because there wasn't some turf right there. You notice the rest of it? There were no weeds. So, thinner weed and turf. That's what you get weeds from. Remember pre-emergence, timing is everything. I don't mind pre-emergence, but I'm not going to use synthetic, I'm going to use corn gluten. Okay? Corn gluten is really good. A&M can't even figure it out. No, here it is. It is, you don't know when seeds are going to emerge. It is based on a lot of factors that we don't know. So, A&M has shown that when they use corn gluten, the experts, the real experts, if they hit it perfect, it's the best pre-emergent weed control you've ever seen in your life. If they miss it, it's the best fertilizer for the weeds you've ever seen in your life. So it's loaded with nitrogen. So corn gluten is really good, but the timing is, and you say, well, I'll just put it out extra early. Doesn't last long enough. So pre-emergence, timing is everything. They need a little water. Whether it's corn gluten or whatever, they need, that's why if I were going to put a pre-emergent for spring weeds, I'd be doing it today. Because we're supposed to get some rain tomorrow and Thursday, about a ½ inch, and put it in the soil, would do my job. And it only controls germinating seeds. I had a phone call one day, well, it didn't kill my Bermuda grass. Nope, not the one thing. Those rhizomes are not affected by pre-emergent weed killers. So, timing is, it's not going to kill anything but seeds. Also remember this, I had a guy, and again, this is all, they didn't understand. They put out a landscape, a native grass mix out. And they said, well, I don't want any weeds. So I'm going to mix that with a pre-emergent herbicide. It kills all germinating seeds. So it did. It killed all the weeds. Also killed all the grasses. That stuff's very expensive. So remember, it kills, and don't ever use it in your garden. Okay, just don't do that. All right. So let's say you decide, I'm not going to put pre-emergent out. I'm going to put a post-emergent out. I'm going to let the weeds come up if you have them. I don't care again whether you use organic or synthetic. That would be up to you. You want young weeds. I don't spray our pasture when our weeds are this tall. We want weeds when they're small. They're young, actively growing, they're going to take the chemical up and kill them. Climate conditions. I don't want it cold. and I don't want it hot. I want it mild. We don't spray in the winter very much, and we obviously don't spray in July and August down here. You want the weeds usually spring and fall. Now, in our pastures, we use a surfactant. And what a surfactant is, when you pour it out, it's not dish soap. It's sticky, and what it makes the chemical do is stick to the leaves. Gives you a better kill. Never use dish soap as a surfactant. A lot of dish soaps will actually make the chemical inactive. But anyway, never use a surfactant in your landscape.
At least it'll be clean.
You could, grease-free. But never, we use surfactants in agriculture, do not use them in your landscape. Here's why. That St. Augustine grass out there, it's almost a broadleaf weed. Horse herb, they use that a lot in Austin as ground cover instead of grass. You use a chemical with surfactant on a horse herb, you're going to kill it all. So surfactant makes the chemical work even better. When a lot of plants we're spraying on in our landscape, we want it to work good. We don't want it to work any better by sticking it on those leaves even better. So in the landscape, just do not use a surfactant. Don't say, I'll just add a little soap and it'll work. I've already added 5 tablespoons instead of 1. I'm going to do a smaller area and I'm going to add a little surfactant in there. I don't understand why everything dies. Okay, so that's for post-emergent. And that'd be things that could be any 2,4-D product, it could be glyphosate, it could be vinegar, it could be any organic or synthetic product out there. It doesn't matter, will I use organic, can I use surfactant? No. Did you have a question? I thought your hand was going to go up. Oh. Okay, here's the biggest thing. And I'm going to paraphrase this. Read the damn labels. All right? First of all, go home and measure those areas I told you to measure. So if you're going to spray your garden, Ruthie goes home, sprays her garden, she knows my garden is 200 square foot. All right, then read the label. If it says put 1 ounce in a gallon of water, and it covers, it's going to make for 200 square foot, Ruthie mixes a gallon of water with 1 ounce of chemical, mixes it up good, sprays her garden. I know what most of these people do at the home. Number one, they don't even know what they're spraying for. They don't know if it's a disease, an insect, they don't know. So they I've seen them mix a fungicide with an insecticide and a herbicide. So they mix them all together. Well, I'm going to kill everything. Okay, so I see a lot of homeowners that go, you know what, I don't want to do this again. I'm not sure conditions are perfect. I'm just going to double it. Now let's talk about chemical companies. Organic or synthetic. If they could put on the label, instead of 1 ounce, 2 ounces, don't you think they do it? It's still double the chemical. They're putting the max on the label, the maximum safe amount. So, if they could put double, why would they put it? Pretty easy marketing tool. I would sell double the amount of chemical. So why are you doubling it? Why are you tripling it? Why? I see homeowners just literally, and else about it. Yeah, I've literally seen that, and you killed everything. And then what you don't kill runs off and pollutes our water sources. And again, we always blame the grass and the landscape. Kind of like when we're back there. You know, we've always blame the school system. We did it, folks. We did the chemical, the water incorrectly. We did all that. Quit blaming the other part. So, if you'll measure it and then read the label, Ruthie says it's 200 square foot. It says 1 ounce in a gallon. We'll cover that. I mix it up. I spray it. No surfactant. I rinse my container out. I have herbicide written on my container or chemical, so I know not to put something in there and miss my leaves or something. So I'm going to do a good job. If I double up the chemical, I'm going to kill things I don't mean to kill. I'm also going to kill things you don't see. It's called the microbes in the soil. And it's a living soil. If the microbes die, the soil dies with it. All right. We're almost done. Promise you. Disease. Only got to worry about 2 of them. And we don't have to worry about the first one. Brown patch. We call it all patch now. You know how brown patch forms? You're seeing it in the spring and the fall. Temperatures are mild. It's too cold right now. Temperatures are mild. And you know what causes brown patch?
Dog pee.
No, that's called urine burn. That's called urine burn. And it's only about that big. That is one big ass dog right there. That must have been Tykees right there. All right. Now, brown patch is formed by two things. Three things. Watering at night when conditions aren't favorable. Mowing your lawn too tall and too much nitrogen fertilizer. So how do you spray for brown patch? You don't. You mow your lawn correctly, try not to water at night, and fertilize your lawn based on the recommendation. Don't put the whole bag out when it doesn't need it. That's how you get rid of brown patch. Because if you spray with a fungicide, you kill it. But if you keep doing what you were doing, guess what? It's going to be right back. And okay, I want to ask y'all a question. Insecticide, herbicide, fungicide. Rank them the worst to the environment to the least. Herbicide, insecticide, fungicide. What do you think the worst one is? Insecticide. What do you think's next? Herbicide or fungicide? Herbicide. So fungicide's the least. Fungicide's the worst by far. Any of y'all buying grapes in the store or strawberries? Wash the hell out of them. Because they use tons of fungicides on grapes and strawberries. Fungicides are the most deadly to us and the environment. Insecticides are next, herbicides are next. So, why would I want to use a fungicide when all I got to do is don't water at night, set my mower probably more correctly, and cut back on my nitrogen fertilizer. Probably my fertilizer as a whole, because instead of putting 5 pounds out or 10 pounds, it's a 40-pound bag, let's just put the whole thing out. Okay? So, brown patch is strictly management. Here's the one you got to worry about. Take-off patch. Take-off patch will kill St. Augustine, we'll get in Bermuda, we'll get in Zoysia, and it's even getting buffalo grass now. Here's the conditions it needs to form. High pH soils. Uh-oh. Poor quality soils. Uh-oh. Hot environmental conditions. Uh-oh. Hard water. Uh-oh. Guadalupe County. Uh-oh. It needs those environmental conditions to get going. If you don't fix it, and just replant, guess what? It's going to come back. You see that stolon? If it were brown patch, this stolon right here would still be green like that. That would be green. The leaves would be dead, but the stolon would be green. Take off patch, the stolon completely dies. And the rhizomes do too, and they're not coming back. So, how do you treat it? Okay, y'all are going to see something pop up there in a second. First of all, I use fungicide. Heritage is the best. 1 pint. That container right there, hold that up. $1,600. Don't rock that container. Okay? And you won't double that one up, will you? No. I might cut that one in half. Okay. Uh-oh. What's the other? Compost or peat moss. Here's what happens. The number one factor for take-off patch is high pH soils right at the soil level. Now, we are not going to change the pH of our soils, guys. We could be here millions of years, and we might go from 7.2 to 7.1. But right at the soil surface, by using peat moss or compost in the spring and fall, when it's getting going, you lower the pH right at the soil surface and take-off patch and everything's going. So the best way to do take-off patch, we can't change the heat, the quality of our water, the quality of our soils. We can't change that. But if we put out spring and fall, like I told you, they also take take-off patch out of the equation. Why spray a fungicide at $1,600 for a pint when you can use compost and peat moss that you're adding organic matter already and you're taking the chemical out? All right, last thing, and then we're done. Bria, and we're going to show, we're going to do the fertilizer when you get your soil samples back. But Bria, in her infinite wisdom, she got her soil sample back. We'll tell you how to do it. But the soil sample came back, we did the fertilizer, and we're just going to, we'll show you how when it comes back, but we're going to hypothetically say we need to use 20, we measure our yard, so Bria, she interpreted my soil sample, which we'll show her how, and she said, Dennis, we're going to choose 21, we only need nitrogen. We're going to choose 2100. What is it, nitrogen? No phosphorus, no calcium. And Dennis, for your lawn, you're going to need 15. So Bria, what a great person. She told me about a soil sample. She interpreted my soil sample. She helped me pick my fertilizer because you can go on that soiltesting.tau.edu and type in the numbers that come back and punch it and it'll tell you, if you put in what fertilizers you want to use, it'll tell you how much to use. Because it's not going to tell you what fertilizer to use because they don't know. Here's the problem. I have a lot of hay clients. I have one of them in Sisterdale, Texas. Beautiful area. No cell phone reception. He asked me out in that field, he wants the answers now. What fertilizer do I use? You better know how to do it. It's so simple, and we'll show you all when we get your soil sample back. But Bria said, Dennis, you need 15 pounds. I just think Bria, let's get Bria here. Good job. Wait a minute.
Hey, she's from Wilson County, too.
And from Wilson County, and I expected more from Wilson County. I thought I trained them better. Okay, so I put the 15 pounds in here. What do I set the fertilizer spreader at? Rita didn't tell me that.
It's on the back of the bag.
Oh, no, but this is a Scott's Bonus S fertilizer spreader. That's a weed and feed fertilizer. What am I putting Calvin here?
Google it.
Doesn't work. Doesn't work. I can show y'all how to calibrate it. It's so simple. I've done it for Master Gardener class after Master Gardener class. None of y'all get it. None of y'all. They don't. Well, I don't understand. And so here's how we're going to do it, Bria. We're going to make you seem so smart. Okay, first thing I thought was, if I needed, say, 5 pounds per 1,000 square feet, why don't I just set this at 5? Seems pretty logical. Well, if I put 2100 in here and set it at 5, it puts 18 pounds of 2100 out per 1,000 square foot. Well, that didn't work. I just put over 3 times what I needed. So here's the way you do it. We'll get you the fertilizer amounts, we'll get all that set. But let's say we need 15 pounds. We're going to put out 5 pounds per 1,000 square feet, and I have a 3,000 square foot lawn. 5 pounds per 1,000 square feet, 3,000 square foot lawn, I need 15 pounds. Here's what you do. I don't care what spreader you use. Handheld, anything. Set it at the lowest rating, lowest deal. Okay? Put 15 pounds in there, weigh it out. Get your bathroom scale, put the bucket on there, zero it, pour 15 pounds, pour it in there. This 15 pounds has to cover this, to say this room is 3,000 square foot. Put on lowest setting. Go north and south, go east and west, go north and south, go east and west, north and south, east, west, till the 15 runs out. And guess what? You put 15 pounds out on 3,000 square foot, and you don't have all those stupid gaps when you just did it one time. Because you know what we do? You go up this way, and you turn around, and you kind of think about here, and you start heading back, and you end up going off that way. And you got this nice little gap through here. If you do north and south, and east and west, and just keep going until that 15 pounds runs out, 2 things happen. You get something called exercise. Take it off your steps. Number 2, better coverage. And you don't have to calibrate it. Now, what you can do, maybe next year it comes back the same amount. Maybe you learn instead of 2, maybe set it at 3. So I just don't have to do it as many times. Don't try calibrating these things. Because, yes, you can Google it. I agree. It won't ever work out. Yes, you can use this book, but that's not Scott's Bonus S. We told you not to use weed and feed. A cow manure would be completely different than a granular. So just put it on the lowest setting. The amount that's needed for that area, just keep going back and forth over it until you use it. Now, Bria, thank you. Good job. Let's give Bria a hand. Tim, I was testing them. I knew Wilson County knew the answer. We were just, she was the fall guy. Now, what we're going to do, y'all are going, okay, Dennis, that's really useful information, but we missed this fertilizer part. We're going to handle that when they get their fertilizer. Next time, I think, is it next time?
Yes.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm doing 3 of these. At some point, I think I'd rather do the March one, or when am I back? March? I think it's March, because that'll be before you fertilize.
Yes.
So anyway, bring your soil samples, because what we're going to do is we're going to take the numbers they throw out and show you how to make a fertilizer amount. And it's so simple. It is so simple. Yes, it's simple. I promise you, it's simple.
When you bring the soil sample, and can I bring you like a week from now?
Yes. I'm going to give y'all my email address so y'all can email me pictures of it too. So, but you bring
I
it.
think even the plant guy is confused, so.
Well, okay. I might be confused, but I'll find it. We had somebody, oh,
Dennis, you'll be back. Dennis, if you look at your schedules, Dennis will be back on the first Tuesday of March, which would be the 4th, okay? And
That's
then I
perfect.
Then I have a question.
okay, that's perfect because it's before you would do any spring fertility.
Yeah.
So you can take that information and use it rather than go, well, I'll use that.
So if I'm brand spanking new, and I have St. Augustine or whatever that succumbs to take it all patch, I think I've corrected the stress factor
Right.
first.
Yes.
Do I still need to reserve a certain amount of time before I go back? and
No,
plant
no. The
other-
disease kills that
Okay.
plant. It does not
Have a
It
residual?
does not have a residual in it in that respect. It goes back dormant, and unless you have the conditions, and that's why when I reestablish any grass in my lawn, I'll do the peat moss and or compost spring and fall, because I'm doing two things. Like I said, I'm adding organic matter, and I'm changing the environment, so take all patch. And this is not Dennis Hale saying this. A&M and other universities, Florida does a ton of work on this because of where they're at. They've shown that it gives about 98% control, where chemical growing you get about 40% control. And you're adding organic matter on top of it. They have sand, yeah, they have poor conditions too. But A&M has done the work of it at College Station, and so that's the important part of that. But if y'all will bring your sample sheets back, we will take, oh, my email address. It's all one word, it's Dennis Hale, DENNIS HALE, all lowercase. Dennis Hale, 89. Thank God it's not Hotmail, I ripped up on that. No, Dennis Hale, 89 at Gmail.
And he's very good at returning messages.
I will. If y'all send me something, I'll do my best. Now, sometimes it's only as good as the picture, but I'll do my best to say this is what I think it is. If it's a grass or a weed, I'll get that. Yeah,
Something that grows up a tree, it's dying, thorns, and it's like a tube.
sounds like greenbrier, just real rough, but you'll send me a picture.
Oh, yeah.
I bet it's greenbrier.
So I have my soil sample from last year before.
Huh?
Can I test it?
Yeah, just shoot to me and I'll tell you, shoot to me and tell me, have y'all fertilized with a certain fertilizer before type for like a, okay, just send me the sample and I'll tell you, this is what you need to use and here are some fertilizers that would work in this house. Okay, yes ma'am.
So that's it's either peat moss or compost.
Yes, peat moss or compost, and here's what I do. You can use just compost every time. You can, or you can use just peat moss every time. I normally do, because of the salt, peat moss has no salt, none. So what I normally do is I just alternate. I'll use compost in the spring and peat moss in the fall, or peat moss in the spring. That way I'm not overdoing. If I overdo my compost a little bit, I'm not adding any sodium. The other problem about takeoff patches, high pH and sodium. So that's why I just do either.
What's the best place to buy peat moss?
Well, I don't know in Seguin. In New Braunfels, we get ours from Brooks Stone Ranch. They have compost, peat moss, they have mushroom compost. I know there's places in Seguin. I think the Master Gardeners here could probably help you more with that. I know there's, in Floresville, there's a place there on 181, right before you go to Floresville, and we know the people that own that. But I mean, I'm not good at Seguin anymore because I'm not, our Travis Frankie, which y'all get, Travis was a 4-H'er of mine in Goliad County, we all get to meet him. But Travis will be able to say, hey, here are some spots in the area that would have that. Yeah.
In Seguin,
Some places do sell bulk peat moss too. No, but I mean actual bulk. Actual like where you buy by the cubic yard if you want to. You can do it. Some places will carry that. I normally don't need a lot of it, so I just buy the base.
Maldonado's have it.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. So, any other questions, concerns? Now, what we're going to do next time, landscape design, top performers, and soil sample. So that'll be a busy, long one.
Yeah.
And then the final time, we're going to review their landscape
That
plans.
is correct.
And I can fail you that last class. I will do it too. Guys, it's been a pleasure, and email me if you got any questions, and I'll see y'all on March the 4th.